Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that really needs to be said. And I'm surprised because I get people who say, Jason, do you do any direct ab work? And it's like, I do a ton of direct ab work. What are you talking about? I don't really show it on camera these days. I used to show some of it, mainly because I do it in between. I do it on off days. I do it as mini workouts and stuff sometimes after my big training days. Maybe after a heavy squat or deadlift session, I'll do some extra abs. A lot of times on my off days, I'll do 3 to 5 sets for my abs. Okay, during my GPP days and stuff. And I do tons and tons and tons of low back work. So, yes, I train my core and I train my abs. And people who ask this, they'll say things like, well, if I'm already squatting and deadlifting heavy, isn't that enough? This person or that person said it. And it's like, do they coach elite lifters? Are they coaching advanced lifters? Because I suspect that they are not. And here's what I'm going to say. How many elite lifters and coaches of elite lifters do you see out there in the world who don't have their people do abs? Almost none that I'm aware of. I don't know of any. Maybe you do. I don't. And we need to step back and think about the weak point training and minimalism. Okay, let's even take the history of my channel as you guys have watched me. When I did a lot of accessory work and had messed with conjugate again and west side stuff and all that stuff years ago, I got strong. I got strong after being sick and not training for several years, spending almost a year in bed learning to walk again. I got pretty dang strong. Ended up getting my squat up to 500-ish. Deadlift around 6. Right, all these things. Then I went over to minimalist training. I bought into some of the minimalist Kool-Aid. There's a number of reasons. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I didn't get stronger. In fact, the very best squat I hit doing any minimalist training was 485. Now you guys see me squat 550. Okay, you guys see me deadlifting past 600. I was doing minimalist training, 575 is the best I got, and that was with straps. I didn't make real progress during that time. I had detrained a bit. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I actually had a period where I didn't train at all for 6 weeks. Middle of a transition. Had to get a car. Had to have an international move. Didn't have gym access for just a bit. I've been through a lot of stuff. But upon rebuilding, I didn't regain my previous strength levels doing minimalist training. I eventually realized conjugate, which is what I use, the system I use now, is the way to go. Had my own epiphanies with it, had to just accept it, embraced it, and I've hit PR after PR after PR after PR for about a year and a half. It's a method I coach, method I use. Okay, minimalist doesn't work. Didn't work for me. I've gotten a hell of a lot stronger. In my 40s, mind you. And what's one of the cornerstones of it? Ab work, accessory work, training your weak points. If you have a weak link, you need to train it directly. Okay, this whole nonsense of, well, if we want our squat to go up, all we have to do is squat. Well, yeah, if you want overuse injuries. You might want to look at some of those minimalist training communities. For a bunch of guys who aren't that strong, they sure do have a lot of injuries. Okay, I mean, let's be realistic here. If you only squat 425, you shouldn't be getting hurt. Let's just be honest here. Okay, if you're a male, let me rephrase that. If you're a woman, that's pretty good. If you're a grown ass man who squats 425, you shouldn't get hurt squatting. Okay. You guys are getting overuse injuries. Because here's the thing to remember. Big multi-joint movements do not develop musculature evenly. Alright? I want to make that clear. Now, those people will argue, but they develop musculature in the proportions necessary for that movement pattern. But do they? Up until they don't. Up until they don't. But here's our issue. It doesn't develop them evenly. And no, it's not always guaranteed to do so. I mean, the perfect example, how many guys out there can't build their triceps on the bench press? Right? And it's because the amount of bench volume they're doing every week doesn't reach their minimum effective volume for their triceps. Triceps are getting stimulated, but it's not hitting the minimum effective volume. All right, here's the problem we have with the human body. Uneven loading, including of primary movers, oftentimes means the amount of percentage of the work being done is going to vary through the different muscles. Minimum effective volume and maximum recoverable volume vary a little bit in individual muscles in the same person. In fact, they can vary a lot. And certain muscles are just prone to having much, much higher volume tolerances and higher needs. Things like deltoids, for example. Okay. So if you were just using a handful of big movements to train everything, you may not see even growth. You may not even see even growth in the proportions necessary to give you the best force production on the lift you're trying to do. You're going to develop weak points. Now, the reason we don't want to talk about weak point training and push it to novices is, number one, because novices are weak. Their whole body's a weak point. Number two, because novices tend to be stupid-ass, silly-ass kids who are obsessed with their biceps, even if they're trying to get strong. When you say weak point training, they do curls. Okay, a novice doesn't go, yeah, my abs are my weak point, so I should train my core. My low back is my weak point, I should train that. My posterior deltoid and mid traps are my weak point, I should train those, right? No, to them when you say that, oh, that just means arms. They go do curls, and they still don't do the stuff that they need to do. So you're better off just having them focus on basic movements, because they won't train their weak points anyways. If you tell them they can add extra smaller exercises to train their weak points, it must be their biceps, right? Because that's the weak muscle they see them here. Their arms are smaller than Arnold Schwarzenegger's, therefore that must be their weak point. It doesn't matter that their whole body is smaller, right? Hint there, young guys, bodybuilders have the proportions they have oftentimes because of side enhancement. All bodybuilders shoot their arms, by the way. So their arms are going to be disproportionately large. Even if they have maximum training volume through their whole body and their own anabolics and everything else, they tend to have bigger arms, oftentimes proportionately because they shoot them. They're injecting stuff in them, fake muscle in there. It's the norm. And that's become the norm in their situation. So, you know, their proportions are going to be different. Just a little side caveat there. But if you have a weak point, you need to train it. I don't care if it's your abs, your hamstrings, your triceps, your traps, whatever your weak links are, you need to train them. And weak abs are relatively common. And let's spin another direction. Because abs do not get worked very effectively dynamically on these movements, they're more of stabilizer muscles, they don't tend to get worked that amazingly well. Okay. And abs have a high volume tolerance. Your abdominals and your core in general actually can benefit from having a much, much higher work capacity, just from a performance perspective. And have you ever heard anyone say, well, my abs were just too strong? Like, have you ever heard a strength athlete, or any athlete for that matter, say that, yep, my ability to perform got messed up because my abdominals or my lower back was just too strong? No, in fact, that's a common injury risk. You're more likely to hurt your low back if any part of your core is weak, whether it's your erectors or your abdominals or obliques, anything. It predisposes you to injury. You're going to be better off if you just go ahead and train your abs. You're going to be a lot better off for it. You're going to be safer. You may get better performance out of it. In many cases, you might. Probably be a good idea. I mean, if you're one of these guys, you're stuck at a 400 squat or you're stuck at a 365 squat and you don't train your abs, yeah, probably is a factor. You should go ahead and do that. If you don't want to get hurt, it would be a good idea also. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.